Hey there, welcome back to Story Slices, where we slice through the best Reddit tales just for you. Let's dive right into the first story. The first one is the Tittle story, and it starts like this. I never thought I'd end up in court over a rusty old pickup truck, but life has a funny way of throwing curveballs at you when you least expect it. My name's Mike, and this is the story of how my entitled neighbor tried to steal my inherited truck and dragged me through a legal nightmare in the process. It all started about 6 months ago when my Uncle Pete passed away. He was my dad's older brother and had always been the cool uncle. The one who'd slip you a 20 on your birthday and tell you not to tell your parents. Pete never had kids of his own, so he doted on us nieces and nephews instead. I was pretty broken up when he died. Pete had been fighting cancer for a while, but he'd always seemed larger than life to me. I guess I thought he'd beat it somehow. The funeral was a somber affair, with relatives I hadn't seen in years coming out of the woodwork to pay their respects. A few weeks after the service, I got a call from Pete's lawyer. Apparently, he'd left me something in his will. I was touched that Uncle Pete had thought of me, but I honestly wasn't expecting much. Maybe one of his prized fishing rods or his collection of Johnny Cash records. So you can imagine my surprise when the lawyer told me I'd inherited Pete's 1967 Ford F-100 pickup truck. I nearly dropped the phone. "Are you serious?" I asked in disbelief. The lawyer chuckled. "As a heart attack, son. Your uncle was very clear that he wanted you to have that truck. Said you were the only one who'd appreciate it properly." I was floored. That old Ford had been Pete's pride and joy for as long as I could remember. He'd bought it brand new back in '67 and babied it ever since. Even as a kid, I'd been fascinated by that truck. Pete would let me sit behind the wheel and pretend to drive sometimes, making engine noises while he laughed. "Wow," I said, still trying to process it. "I don't know what to say." "Well, you'll need to come down to the office to sign some paperwork," the lawyer replied. "But after that, she's all yours." I thanked him profusely and hung up, my mind reeling. I couldn't believe Uncle Pete had left me his beloved truck. It meant more to me than he probably ever knew. The next day, I drove out to Pete's old place to pick up the Ford. His house had already been sold, but the realtor met me there to hand over the keys to the detached garage where Pete had always kept the truck stored. As the garage door creaked open, I felt a lump form in my throat. There she was, just as beautiful as I remembered. Baby blue paint with a white roof, gleaming chrome bumpers, white wall tires. Pete had kept her in immaculate condition. I ran my hand reverently over the hood, memories flooding back. Summer afternoons spent washing and waxing the truck with Pete. Him teaching me to change the oil when I was 12. Taking it for ice cream runs, the breeze blowing through the cab. "She's a beaut, ain't she?" a voice called out, startling me from my reverie. I turned to see a middle-aged woman standing at the edge of the driveway, arms crossed as she eyed the truck. She was short and plump, with frizzy graying hair and an expression of displeasure on her round face. Yeah, she sure is," I replied, wondering who this woman was, and why she was so interested in Uncle Pete's truck. The woman's scowl deepened. "Damn shame what happened to old Pete. He was a good neighbor, always willing to lend a hand." "Ah, so she lived nearby?" I nodded politely. "Yeah, he was a great guy. I'm his nephew, Mike." "Cheryl Hawkins," she said curtly, not offering to shake hands. "I live next door. Known Pete for going on 30 years now." "Nice to meet you," I said, though Cheryl's demeanor was anything but friendly. "I'm just here to pick up the truck. Pete left it to me in his will." Cheryl's eyes narrowed dangerously. "Is that so? Well, I'm afraid there's been some kind of mistake. That truck belongs to me." I blinked in surprise. "Excuse me?" "You heard me," Cheryl snapped. "Pete promised me years ago that I'd get the truck when he passed. We had an agreement." I frowned, confused and a little irritated by this woman's attitude. "I'm sorry, but that's not what his will says." The lawyer was very clear that Uncle Pete left the truck to me. Cheryl took a step closer, jabbing a finger in my direction. "Now you listen here, young man. I don't know who you think you are, but that truck is rightfully mine. Pete and I had an understanding." "Look, I'm just going by what the will says," I said, trying to keep my cool. "If you have some kind of claim on the truck, you'll need to take it up with the lawyer. But as far as I know, it legally belongs to me now." "We'll just see about that," Cheryl growled. "I'm not about to let some snot-nosed kid waltz in here and steal what's mine. You haven't heard the last of this." With that, she spun on her heel and stormed off down the street. I watched her go, baffled by the bizarre encounter. What the hell was that all about? I shook my head and turned back to the truck. Whatever Cheryl's deal was, I wasn't going to let her ruin this moment for me. I climbed into the driver's seat, inhaling the familiar scent of old leather and pine air freshener. The key was already in the ignition. I said a silent prayer and turned it. The engine roared to life, purring like a contented cat. I couldn't help but grin. Same old reliable Ford. I carefully backed the truck out of the garage and onto the street. As I shifted into drive, I caught sight of Cheryl watching from her front porch, arms crossed and scowling. I gave her a little wave as I drove past, but she just glared daggers at me. On the drive home, I couldn't shake an uneasy feeling. Something told me I hadn't seen the last of Cheryl Hawkins or her wild claims about the truck. But surely she was just blowing hot air, right? She couldn't actually do anything about a legally binding will. Oh, how naive I was. I had no idea of the ridiculous legal battle that lay ahead. Little did I know, Cheryl was about to make my life a living hell over this truck. The first sign of trouble came about a week later. I was at work when my phone buzzed with a text from my girlfriend Sarah. "Babe, there's some crazy lady banging on our front door. Says she's looking for you about a truck." My stomach dropped. Cheryl had somehow found out where I lived. I quickly called Sarah back to explain the situation. "Holy crap, Mike," Sarah said after I filled her in. "This woman sounds unhinged. Should I call the cops?" I sighed. "No, don't do that yet. Just don't answer the door. I'll be home as soon as I can." When I pulled into our driveway an hour later, Cheryl was thankfully gone, but she'd left behind a crudely handwritten note taped to our door. "I know you're in there. That truck belongs to me, and I'll get it back one way or another. You can't hide forever." "Charming," Sarah remarked dryly as we read it together. "You sure know how to pick 'em, babe." I crumpled up the note with a groan. "I swear, I've never even met this woman before last week. I have no idea why she's so fixated on Uncle Pete's truck." Sarah squeezed my hand. "Well, she can't actually do anything, right? I mean, you inherited it fair and square." I nodded, though I was starting to have my doubts. "Yeah, of course. She's probably just trying to scare me into giving it up. I'm sure she'll get bored and move on soon." But Cheryl didn't get bored. If anything, she only got more persistent. Over the next few weeks, she showed up at our house almost daily. Sometimes she'd just sit in her car across the street watching our place for hours. Other times she'd march right up and pound on the door, shouting about how the truck was rightfully hers. We started keeping all the curtains drawn and made sure to lock up every time we left. It was like being under siege in our own home. "This is getting ridiculous," Sarah said one night after Cheryl's third visit that day. "We need to do something about her." I rubbed my temples, feeling a stress headache coming on. I know. I'll call the police tomorrow and see about getting a restraining order or something." But before I could make that call, things escalated even further. I woke up the next morning to find all 4 tires on Uncle Pete's truck had been slashed. "Son of a idiot," I swore as I surveyed the damage. There was no proof it was Cheryl, of course, but who else would have done this? I called the cops to file a report, but they said there wasn't much they could do without evidence. They suggested setting up security cameras, which we immediately ordered online. While I waited for a tow truck to take the Ford to a tire shop, a familiar car pulled up to the curb. Cheryl got out, a sickeningly smug smile on her face. Well, she said, looking at the slashed tires. "Looks like someone doesn't want you driving my truck." I clenched my fists, fighting to keep my temper in check. "We both know you did this, Cheryl. The police are already involved. You need to back off before you get yourself in real trouble." Cheryl's smile didn't waver. "I don't know what you're talking about. I'm just a concerned citizen checking on my property, and I'll keep checking until I get what's mine." I opened my mouth to retort, but Sarah appeared at my side and squeezed my arm in warning. "Let's go inside, babe," she said quietly. "She's not worth it." As we turned to go, Cheryl called out, "Better lawyer up, kid, because I'm taking you to court." I froze in my tracks. "What did you say?" Cheryl's grin widened. "You heard me. I'm suing you for ownership of the truck. My lawyer already filed the paperwork this morning. Hope you're ready for a fight, because I'm not backing down until that Ford is back where it belongs." With that, she got back in her car and drove off, leaving me standing there in shock. Was she serious? Could she actually sue me over an inherited vehicle? "She's bluffing," Sarah said, but she sounded uncertain. "Right?" I shook my head slowly. "I don't know, but I think we'd better call Uncle Pete's lawyer, just in case." 2 days later, I was served with official court summons. Cheryl Hawkins was indeed suing me for ownership of the 1967 Ford F-100, claiming she had a verbal agreement with my uncle that superseded his will. What followed was one of the most stressful and bizarre experiences of my life. Suddenly, I found myself embroiled in a legal battle over a 50-year-old pickup truck with a woman I barely knew. I hired a lawyer of my own, a no-nonsense type named Gloria Ramirez, who specialized in estate disputes. When I explained the situation, she seemed equal parts amused and annoyed. "I've seen some frivolous lawsuits in my day," Gloria said, shaking her head, "but this one takes the cake. Don't worry though, we'll shut this down quick." But it turned out to be anything but quick. Cheryl and her sleazy ambulance chaser of a lawyer threw everything they had at us. They claimed Pete had verbally promised her the truck years ago in exchange for unnamed favors. They produced a grainy photo of Pete and Cheryl standing next to the Ford, as if that proved anything. They even tracked down Pete's old drinking buddies and got signed affidavits, saying they'd heard him mention leaving the truck to the nice lady next door on multiple occasions. It was all circumstantial BS, of course, but it was enough to keep the case from being immediately dismissed, which meant more lawyer fees, more stress, and more time wasted in court. To make matters worse, the judge ordered that the truck be impounded until ownership could be definitively established. So now I couldn't even enjoy the vehicle I'd rightfully inherited while this circus played out. As the weeks dragged on, I started to worry. What if Cheryl actually won? The thought of losing Uncle Pete's beloved truck to this unhinged woman made me sick to my stomach. but Gloria assured me we had a rock-solid case. The will was properly executed and witnessed. There was zero evidence of any agreement between Pete and Cheryl. And even if there had been some verbal promise years ago, it wouldn't supersede a legal last will and testament. Still, I knew we needed something more concrete to put this to bed once and for all. So I started digging. I reached out to every relative I could think of, asking if they knew anything about Pete's relationship with his neighbor or his plans for the truck. Most were as baffled by the situation as I was, but then I got an interesting lead from my cousin Jenny. "You know," she said, "I remember Uncle Pete mentioning that he kept a journal. Said writing stuff down helped him cope with the cancer treatments. Maybe there's something in there that could help?" It was a long shot, but I was willing to try anything at this point. I asked Jenny where Pete might have kept such a journal. Knowing Uncle Pete, probably someplace obvious, she laughed. Like tucked under the seat of that old truck or something. My eyes widened. Of course, why hadn't I thought to thoroughly search the Ford before? I immediately called Gloria and explained my hunch. She got the judge to grant us a supervised examination of the impounded vehicle. Cheryl and her lawyer were there too, watching like hawks as we combed through every nook and cranny of the old pickup. At first, we came up empty, but then, just as I was starting to lose hope, I felt something taped to the underside of the bench seat. My heart racing, I carefully peeled it free. It was a small leather-bound notebook. Pete's journal. Cheryl immediately started shrieking that we had planted it, but the impound lot's security cameras would prove otherwise. Gloria and I pored over the journal right there in the parking lot. Most of it was mundane daily observations and Pete's thoughts on his illness. But then we found the entry we were looking for, dated just a few months before he passed. Cheryl from next door stopped by again, pestering me about the truck. I swear, that woman is becoming a real pain in my ass. Keeps talking about some promise I supposedly made her years ago. I think she's after my money, to be honest. Well, joke's on her. Already talked to my lawyer about leaving the Ford to Mike. That boy's the only one who really appreciates that old girl anyway. Hope he takes good care of her when I'm gone. I could have cried with relief. Here, in Pete's own handwriting, was proof that he never intended for Cheryl to have the truck. Even better, it showed she had been harassing him about it while he was ill. Gloria grinned triumphantly. "Oh yeah, this is exactly what we needed. Your case is about to get thrown out faster than you can say frivolous lawsuit, sweetheart." Cheryl's face had gone pale as she realized her scheme was unraveling. Her lawyer started stammering about needing time to authenticate the journal, but we both knew it was over. 2 days later, we were back in court for what would be the final hearing. The judge had read Pete's journal and was clearly unimpressed with Cheryl's claims. "Mrs. Hawkins," he said sternly, "in light of this new evidence, I'm left with no choice but to dismiss your lawsuit with prejudice. Mr. Thompson is the rightful owner of the vehicle in question, as clearly stated in Mr. Peter Thompson's last will and testament." I breathed a huge sigh of relief. Finally, this nightmare was over. But the judge wasn't done. "Furthermore," he continued, "given the frivolous nature of this suit and the apparent harassment of the deceased prior to his passing, I'm ordering you to pay all of Mr. Thompson's legal fees." Cheryl's face went from pale to bright red. "You can't do that," she shrieked. "This is an outrage." "I'll appeal?" "You're welcome to try," the judge said dryly, "though I wouldn't recommend it. You're already on thin ice, Mrs. Hawkins. I'd strongly advise you to walk away now before you find yourself facing criminal charges." With that, he banged his gavel and it was over. Cheryl stormed out of the courtroom, still ranting about appeals and injustice, but her lawyer just looked defeated. I had a feeling he knew this was the end of the line. Gloria turned to me with a wide smile. "Congratulations, Mike. The truck is officially, indisputably yours, and you won't be paying a dime for my services." I shook her hand gratefully. "I can't thank you enough, Gloria. I honestly wasn't sure how this was going to turn out for a while there." She chuckled. "The law isn't always as clear-cut as we'd like, but today, justice prevailed. Now go enjoy that beautiful old Ford. I have a feeling your uncle would be proud." An hour later, I was driving the newly released truck home, the wind whipping through the open windows. The purr of that V8 engine had never sounded sweeter. Sarah was waiting for me in the driveway, practically bouncing with excitement. "Well?" she asked as I pulled up. "How'd it go?" I climbed out with a grin. "We won. The truck is ours, free and clear, and Cheryl has to pay all our legal fees." Sarah threw her arms around me with a squeal of delight. "I knew you'd beat her. God, what a crazy few months it's been." I hugged her back tightly. "No kidding. I still can't quite believe it's over." As if on cue, a car came screeching around the corner. It was Cheryl, of course. She slammed to a stop in front of our house and leapt out, looking apoplectic. "This isn't over?" she screamed, marching towards us. "I'll appeal? I'll take it all the way to the Supreme Court if I have to." I stepped in front of Sarah protectively. "Cheryl, you need to leave. Now? You heard the judge. Keep this up and you'll be looking at jail time." "I don't care," she shrieked. "That truck is mine. Pete promised me." Suddenly, Sarah piped up from behind me. "Oh, is that right? Well, why don't we ask him ourselves?" Cheryl and I both turned to stare at her in confusion. Sarah just smiled and held up her phone. "I've got Uncle Pete's old number right here. Should we give him a call and clear this all up?" For a moment, Cheryl looked utterly baffled. Then comprehension dawned and the fight seemed to drain out of her all at once. "You're crazy," she muttered. "All of you. Crazy and cruel." Without another word, she turned and shuffled back to her car. As she drove away, I couldn't help but feel a twinge of pity. Cheryl clearly had some issues she needed to work through. "Think that's the last we'll see of her?" Sarah asked. I shrugged. "I hope so, but just in case, I think I'll invest in a really good car alarm." Sarah laughed and gave me a kiss. "Come on, let's take that beautiful truck for a proper drive. I think we've earned it." So that's exactly what we did. We cruised around town with the windows down, enjoying the beautiful summer evening. And as I drove, I couldn't help but think that Uncle Pete was up there somewhere, smiling down on us. The road ahead was clear, the engine was purring, and all was right with the world. Sometimes justice really does prevail, and sometimes, you end up with one hell of a story to tell. Update. After our victory in court, Sarah and I hoped we'd seen the last of Cheryl. Unfortunately, our troubles weren't quite over yet. A few weeks after the trial, I was working on the truck in our driveway when a police cruiser pulled up. 2 officers got out looking serious. "Michael Thompson?" one of them asked. I nodded, wiping my hands on a rag. "That's me. What's this about?" The officer sighed. "I'm afraid we've had a complaint filed against you, sir. Your neighbor, Cheryl Hawkins, is accusing you of harassment and making threats." I blinked in disbelief. "What? That's ridiculous. I haven't even seen Cheryl since the court case." "Be that as it may," the other officer said, "we have to follow up on all complaints. Mind if we ask you a few questions?" For the next 20 minutes I answered their questions as calmly and clearly as I could. No, I hadn't been contacting Cheryl. No, I certainly hadn't threatened her. Yes, I was aware of the restraining order she'd apparently filed against me. That last bit was news to me, and it made my blood boil, but I kept my cool and stuck to the facts. Finally, the officer seemed satisfied. "All right, Mr. Thompson," the first one said. "We don't see any evidence to support Ms. Hawkins' claims, but we'd advise you to be careful. Stay away from her property and don't engage if she tries to contact you." I nodded. "Trust me, officers, I want nothing to do with that woman." After they left, I called Gloria right away to fill her in. "Unbelievable," she muttered when I finished. "She's really not letting this go, is she? All right, here's what we're going to do. First, we're filing a counterclaim for a restraining order against her. Second, I'm going to have a strongly worded conversation with her lawyer about filing false police reports." I rubbed my temples, feeling a headache coming on. "You think that'll be enough to stop her?" Gloria's voice hardened. "Oh, it better be, because if she keeps this up, we're going to sue her for harassment and defamation. I've got a feeling the judge from your last case would be very interested to hear about these new developments." Over the next few days, things seemed to calm down. We didn't see or hear from Cheryl, and no more police showed up at our door. I started to hope that maybe Gloria's threats had finally gotten through to her. Then, about a week later, disaster struck. I woke up in the middle of the night to the sound of breaking glass. Jumping out of bed, I ran to the window just in time to see a figure dart away from the driveway. My heart sank as I looked out at Uncle Pete's truck. Every window had been smashed in, and even from here I could see deep scratches all along the sides. Sarah came up behind me, gasping when she saw the damage. "Oh my God, you don't think?" "Cheryl," I growled, already reaching for my phone to call the police. This time, the cops took things much more seriously. They dusted for fingerprints and took photos of the damage. One officer even mentioned they'd had other reports of Cheryl causing disturbances in the neighborhood lately. "We'll do our best to build a case," he assured me. "In the meantime, you might want to invest in some security cameras." The next morning, I called Gloria again. She was furious when she heard what had happened. "That's it," she said firmly. "The gloves are coming off. We're filing a civil suit for damages and emotional distress, and I'm calling the DA's office to push for criminal charges." I sighed, looking out at the battered truck. "I just want this to be over, Gloria. I'm tired of looking over my shoulder all the time." "I know, Mike," she said, her voice softening. "But we can't let her get away with this. Sometimes you have to stand up to bullies, even when it's exhausting." She was right, of course, so we forged ahead with the legal proceedings. It was a grueling process, gathering evidence and giving statements, but I was determined to see it through. A month later, we had our day in court. This time, Cheryl didn't even bother to show up. Her lawyer looked like he wanted to be anywhere else. The judge listened to our case, reviewed the police reports and photos, and watched security camera footage from a neighbor that clearly showed Cheryl vandalizing the truck. When it was all said and done, the verdict came down hard and fast. Cheryl was found guilty of vandalism, harassment, and filing false police reports. She was ordered to pay for all damages to the truck, plus a hefty sum for emotional distress. The judge also issued a permanent restraining order against her. Furthermore, he added sternly, "I'm recommending that the district attorney pursue criminal charges. This kind of persistent, malicious behavior cannot be tolerated." I let out a breath I didn't realize I'd been holding. It was over. Really, truly over this time. As we left the courthouse, Gloria gave me a pat on the back. "You did good, Mike. You stood your ground and saw this through. A lot of people would have given up or caved under that kind of pressure." I managed a tired smile. "Thanks, Gloria. I couldn't have done it without you." When I got home, Sarah was waiting with a big hug and an even bigger surprise. "I've got something to show you," she said, leading me out to the driveway. There, gleaming in the sunlight, was Uncle Pete's truck, but it looked better than I'd ever seen it. The windows had been replaced, the paint touched up, and it practically sparkled. How? I started, but Sarah just grinned. "I called in a few favors while you were in court. Figured you could use some good news." I wrapped her in a bear hug, feeling overwhelmed. "You're amazing, you know that?" She laughed. "I know. Now come on, let's take this beauty for a drive. I think we've earned it." As we cruised down the highway, windows down and radio up, I finally felt like I could relax. The ordeal with Cheryl had been a nightmare, but we'd come out the other side stronger. I glanced over at Sarah, then back at the open road ahead. "You know," I said, "I've been thinking. Maybe it's time we took a real road trip in this old girl. See some sights, make some memories." Sarah's eyes lit up. "I love that idea. Where should we go?" I grinned. "Wherever the road takes us. I hear the Grand Canyon is nice this time of year." She leaned over and kissed my cheek. "Sounds perfect." A week later, we set off on our adventure. The truck ran like a dream, eating up mile after mile of highway. We visited national parks, quirky roadside attractions, and little diners in the middle of nowhere. Every night, as we sat around campfires or in small-town motels, I found myself telling the story of the truck and our battle with Cheryl. It always got a reaction, from disbelief to outrage to laughter. "Man," one fellow traveler said, shaking his head, "I don't know if I could have handled all that. You guys are tough." I just shrugged. "You'd be surprised what you can handle when you have to. Sometimes life throws you curveballs, and you've just got to step up to the plate." As our trip went on, I realized something. The whole Cheryl saga, as awful as it had been, had taught me a lot. About standing up for what's right, about perseverance, and about the importance of having good people in your corner. When we finally rolled back into our driveway 3 weeks later, I felt like a changed man. More confident, more relaxed, and more appreciative of what I had. I patted the truck's dashboard as I shut off the engine. "Thanks, Uncle Pete," I said softly. "For everything?" Sarah squeezed my hand. "You okay?" I nodded, smiling. "Yeah, I'm great, actually. You know, I think Uncle Pete would be pretty proud of how we handled everything." "I'm sure he would be," Sarah agreed. "So, what's next? Back to normal life?" I thought about it for a moment. "Well, maybe not entirely normal. I've been thinking, maybe we could start a little side business. You know, helping people restore old vehicles, especially ones with sentimental value." Sarah's eyes widened. That's actually a really cool idea. We could call it Pete's Classic Restorations or something." I grinned. "I love it. Who knows? Maybe we'll even help someone else hold on to a piece of family history." As we started unpacking the truck, I felt a sense of excitement building. The nightmare with Cheryl was behind us, and a new chapter was just beginning. Whatever challenges came next, I knew we could handle them. After all, we had a tough old truck, each other, and a hell of a story to tell. What more did we need? The next one is an entitled people story. My future mother-in-law and I are both big THT fans, so please note that some of this information will be left with incorrect details so it's not obvious. I'm writing about her, so please know I'm not bashing any specific religion. Over the weekend, my amazing fiancé of 5 years proposed. I am a very type A person, so right away, I wanted to start looking at venues because I knew the month and year I wanted. There's so many reasons why I wanted the month of April. Just some examples. My parents got married in April. My siblings got married in April. My fiancé and I met in April. His favorite month is April due to how much he loves the weather. Spring is also my favorite season. Just a bunch of reasons combined to the perfect month. We also need to get married next year for personal reasons, which is why we're so specific about the year. After searching about 10 venues, we find the one we love. We knew it was going to be our venue BC. When we both walked into the venue, we got emotional. We sat down with the owner, and he gave us some amazing deals because he could tell we loved the venue, and so we set the date. I reached out to his mom to let her know we have set a date, and she immediately calls me to say we set the date on a very important religious holiday for her and her parents. I asked her if this is a big deal. Neither me nor my fiancé are religious, and to be honest, I didn't even know they were that religious. Just as an example, my fiancé isn't even baptized, and as a family, they celebrate all the generic holidays but don't even go to church or pray. In fact, he is so not religious that he didn't even know the holiday fell on this day until she told us. She says it is the most important holiday in her religion, and due to this, she will not be able to be in attendance at our wedding, nor will her parents, as they are even more religious than her. His dad will come because they are divorced and he is putting his son over the religious date. I reach out to my mother to confirm to her that this was a bad idea, and she asks around. A few of her friends who are also of this religion tell her while this is an important holiday, none of them will miss our wedding for it. Only my fiancé's mom and grandparents are making the big deal. I asked my fiancé what he wanted to do. This is his decision to make and not mine, and he told me that he refuses to give up our dream venue on the only Sunday they have available to please his mother/grandparents who aren't even that religious. So we don't change the date and tell them they are welcome to not join us even if that breaks our heart. Well, now his mother and grandparents are refusing to talk to us because we won't change the date of our wedding. So am I the a-hole for not wanting to change the date? Update. After a sleepless night and reading over 300 comments, I've come to a few decisions. But first, thank you. Thank you to everybody who made me feel like the bride I deserve to be, by telling me that my day and my fiancé's support is the most important thing. And for those of you who think I was the a-hole, absolutely a fair point, but the one thing that was not understood was that this decision was made strictly by my fiancé. The ball was completely in his court. I already had another venue booked to look at to replace our current venue. He decided that his grandparents' response was not worth his time, as they should have respected him as a person, not as a religious person. I told my boyfriend that I was not willing to have a sleepless year of worrying if his mom/grandparents will show to the wedding. So we came up with 3 game plans, all of which we are going to bring up with the venue on Saturday. Keeping our current date because we already put $5,000 down, but looking at other venues that may have another date available. And if we find a venue we love just as much, we just lose our $5,000 deposit. But if we are unable to find another venue we love, we ask this venue to keep us on a wait list, as maybe one of the Sundays will clear up. Ask his grandparents/mother for the money of the difference for a Saturday versus Sunday wedding, since there is currently one Saturday still available. We think this is a fair ask, because something that wasn't mentioned is that his grandparents are very well off financially. Ask the mother/grandparents what time would best work with them if we kept the date. We believe that we can both have the wedding and celebrate the holiday, but that may mean that some other guest will not be able to attend because the wedding will be too early/too late. But at least his grandparents/mom will be there. Hopefully one of these options work, but I won't have another update until Saturday. Thank you all. Final update. So I have the final update for anyone who's still even interested. And please note that I have no idea if I'm actually doing this update thing correctly, so if anybody knows how to better update the people from the other 2 posts, LMK. Well, I just got back from our venue, and I had the greatest news ever. He was able to give us a different date. Not only a different date, but a Saturday for the same price he was giving us for a Sunday. I will say that it wasn't easy to get him to agree to this, but after a few tears and my parents getting involved and having to explain to him that we may not go with the venue at all, he agreed. But with the stimulation some other bride has to take our Sunday. So if something happens between now and next year in which he can't fill that Sunday, then we are going to unfortunately have to pay this price difference. But I have a lot of faith that brides will be interested in that date, as he has 3 this week alone for brides looking for that same month. As for my fiance's mother/grandparents, it turns out I wasn't the a-hole at all. Once we called them with excitement to let them know we changed to a Saturday. They said they were not going to be able to be in attendance as they have church/temple early in the morning on Sundays and cannot afford to stay out late Saturdays. Cute considering they've never once been to church/temple the entire time I've known them. But at least the mother saw their ways and agreed she would no longer following their rules and won't too influenced by their behaviors. Thank you all for everything, and cheers to being a 2025 Saturday bride. The next one is an entitled people story. My brother, Mark 40, won the lottery when he was 20. It was $1,000 a week for life. He was young and wanted to travel. He dropped out of school and has spent his entire adulthood basically seeing the world. He comes home to visit every few years and we FaceTime with him when he is near a signal. He doesn't travel first class or stay in expensive resorts, so he has actually built up some nice savings. He came home with a girlfriend, Haley, 28 this year. They met when they got stuck in South America during the pandemic. She has been traveling since she graduated from university and she works out of a laptop. I F54 live in the same city where I was born. I love it here. I love being close to my parents and my grandchildren, and most of my siblings. Mark hated being the youngest of 8 and always swore he would not have kids. Our parents were older when they had him and they didn't have the energy for him, truth be told. Mark came home when he was 30 and told us all that he had had a vasectomy, and that he would not be contributing to the world population. Haley is a pretty young thing, and she is also intelligent and sweet. I can understand why anyone would fall in love with her. We were having a family barbecue to celebrate Mark being in town. There were maybe 30 people in my parents' yard and house. I was talking to Haley about her future plans now that the world opened up again. She said that she was ready to settle down and start a family. I asked if they were planning on adopting from one of the countries that they had traveled to, or if they would try in North America. She said they had talked about it and would be having at least one child of their own. This may be where I ducked up. I asked where Mark got his vasectomy reversed or if they were having in vitro fertilization. I know they can harvest sperm from a testicle even after a vasectomy. She went very quiet and went over to Mark. They spoke and they left. Mark called me later that night to scream at me for ruining his life. He hadn't told her, and he was planning on just continuing to travel and maybe adopt if they decided on it. He said I shared private medical information and that he never wanted to see me again. I apologized over and over. I seriously had no way of knowing that he was planning a future with this girl, without telling her a pretty big piece of the puzzle might be missing. I feel bad for him, but I think you should have told her. Update: my brother now refuses to visit our parents if I'm around, because I accidentally told his girlfriend at the time that he had a vasectomy when she told me that they were trying for kids. So it wasn't that he was planning on reversing his vasectomy or anything. He wanted to do the same as that poor woman's boyfriend, just lead her on until it was too late for her to have kids. He came by this summer with his girlfriend and I stayed away. I guess he told this one that he and I have a bad relationship, and that I'm jealous of his riches lol after his lottery win. I'm not going to do anything about it, but I hope she finds out before he screws her future as well. Sort of a funny thing though, his lottery money may run out soon. It turns out that he should have paid more attention. The money he won was $1,000 a week for life, was actually only for 25 years. He does have savings, so he shouldn't be destitute or anything, but he also does not have a pension or anything. I am interested to see what happens in 4 years. The next one is an entitled people story. Maybe this is a moaning Michael post. I don't know, but I'd appreciate any all advice anyone could give me, or even share your own stories with me so I don't feel like I'm alone in this. I'm starting a new job the week after next, and the closer the date gets, the more worried I am. This feels embarrassing to admit as a woman in her 30s, but in my last job I just left, I was bullied by 2 people, a man and a woman, who ganged up on me together. Before you ask me why I didn't speak up, I reported it numerous times. Other people who witnessed the bullying reported it on my behalf numerous times and nothing was ever done about it. The most that ever happened was the department head took me out for a coffee, told me she had seen the bullying herself and sympathized with me. But all she said after that was, I don't think they'd react favorably to me trying to talk to them about it, so from here on out, just don't mind them, okay? My line manager was an older man near retirement who didn't really give a crap about the whole thing, and kept telling me, sure, just ignore them and they'll stop. The bullying only got worse and escalated from insults and personal comments about my weight and sexual orientation to disrupting my daily work. For example, when I left on annual leave for a week, one of the bullies was supposed to cover me on our shared mailbox. I came back and he hadn't replied to a single email in my absence, so I had triple the work to catch up on my return. In the end, I couldn't take it anymore and handed in my notice. I left, and have been working an admin job these past few months while I readied myself to get back into my field of work. Now I have a new job for a new company, starting next Monday, 17th of June. I'm thrilled to be getting back to what I'm good at and what I like, but I'm scared at the same time that it will all happen again. The last time was horrible. Walking into that office every day felt like going to hell. I'm so afraid of it all starting up again with new bullies. Update. I posted here about 2 months ago saying that I was nervous about starting a new job because I'd been bullied in my last one. To be honest, I was in a state when I wrote that post. I was feeling so upset and scared, but as a woman who just turned 30 earlier this year, I felt embarrassed talking to anyone about the topic of bullying. It felt humiliating, so I posted about it here instead. Within minutes, the support, warmth and compassion that people responded to me with was honestly amazing. Some people commented and others messaged me directly to share their own stories of workplace bullying, to give advice, to help me put things in perspective and to comfort me. Hearing similar stories from so many different people made me feel a lot less alone, and I was no longer completely mortified about the fact that I was bullied. If you were one of those people, thank you. Your kindness made a huge difference to me that day, and I can't express how grateful I am to you for taking the time. I've since started my new job and all the people there are lovely. Not only is everyone on my new team approachable, friendly and easy to work with, but there's actually 2 people I have so much in common with that we've become friends outside of work too. I don't want to jinx it on the bullying front, but so far so good. Anyway, I just wanted to say thank you so much to everyone who commented on my post or sent me a message. You made me feel a lot better, and I was much calmer going into my first day at a new workplace than I would have been otherwise. To anyone reading this who is in a situation like the one I was in, please know that it's nothing to be ashamed of. Bullying in the workplace is an issue that lots of people face. It can happen to anyone, regardless of age, gender, personality type, etc. There are resources available, and you most certainly do not have to suffer in silence the way I felt I had to. Hope everyone has a great bank holiday weekend. The next one is an entitled people story. There was a particularly tricky unit in my university course, and I'm ashamed to say that I paid a programmer to code a major project. I graduated, and eventually got Canadian citizenship, through the university degree and relevant work experience. Last year the programmer contacted me and started blackmailing me for $100 monthly, or else he would report me to the uni. The programmer had extensive email evidence. I obliged at first, but his demands got higher. Since I already have work experience, I figured out losing my degree wouldn't be a big deal. Long story short, he reported me and my university revoked my degree. I thought that would be the end of it. But I recently got a written notice from the Citizenship and Passport Cases Division that they are considering revoking my citizenship for fraud, and instructed me to write an information letter to them pleading my case. I love Canada, and my entire life is here. I already lost my home country's citizenship since they do not allow dual citizenship. I will end up stateless if their decision goes through. Does anyone here have any advice or case law which I can write in my information letter? Update. I posted here last year about how I paid someone to do a programming assignment, and how that someone reported me to my college years after I had graduated, at which point my degree got revoked, and at which point the Canadian government sent me a letter telling me that they were considering to revoke my citizenship, as I was no longer eligible for it in the first place, due to not having a degree. Basically, that letter was a scam from the blackmailer himself. It was obvious from how he was asking a processing fee to be paid to a random PayPal account. I'm certain he got my home address by Googling my Googleable name, people finder sites. I still got my Canadian citizenship, though my degree was revoked, rightfully and deservedly. The next one is an entitled people story. Hi everyone, I'm so grateful to this community and the incredible support. I'm posting this to update you about our case. My brother called and threatened to kill me and my husband and kids about 2 months ago. He also has a history of getting guns, an axe, and other supplies with plans to commit other murders. He has hurt a dog sexually when he was younger but did not hurt people yet. It has been horrible and difficult, and I'm not sure that I could have survived emotionally without my friends, colleagues, and this community. You gave me amazing advice. We are moving this upcoming weekend. My husband has been more supportive with the move, even though he still feels that he could take on my brother. I'm not interested in physically confronting my brother. I don't want to live in constant fear. Meds and the psych hospital didn't help him. I think the only thing that will help is a long-term inpatient unit, but our state doesn't have those resources. My brother was released from the hospital straight to jail. He currently awaits his court date in May. I met with the prosecutor today and gave my statement. They put his bail at $500,000. The highest the detective I've been working with has seen for a misdemeanor. His lawyer requested to lower it, but the judge refused to lower the bail amount. I was told the judge is aware of his previous serious plans and preparations to kill. The prosecutor plans to go for the most jail time possible for this a year. I don't know if jail is right for him, but if he is released, he will hurt someone. I spoke with my dad, and he was so mad at me for speaking with the police. He kept saying how my brother was asking for help and sharing his fantasies with me, not threatening me. He kept telling me to withdraw my statement. He said that I am the one that put my brother in jail. It broke my heart. I told my dad that I only told the police the truth. I told him my brother is sick and will hurt someone. My dad said you don't have a crystal ball. True, but he's made his intentions clear again and again and again. His doctor said he has no empathy. His only thrill is thinking about hurting others. The prosecutor said that even if I withdraw my complaint, the state is still bringing these charges. The social worker and prosecutor said this to my parents, but my dad, mom, and sister keep insisting that I need to recant my statement. I'm terrified of every small noise in the house. We are leaving our friends and everyone we know and moving because of my brother's actions. I feel so heartbroken that my dad and family are blind to it. Everyone else, police and medical staff included, can see the clear writing on the wall. Update: I want to let you know we are safe. We are in our new state. My husband is trying his best and being far more supportive. He still believes we should have stayed to fight, but he's accepted the fact. I felt the threat was real. The kids are adjusting to life in our new state. We made some friends. Our location is not public, despite my license to practice medicine being available online. It is far from the first result and our address is hidden. My employer is very respectful and kept my name off of the clinic list of providers. I've signed us up for address protection through our state. This is thanks to many of you who advised me to move and hide our address. I appreciate all your kind advice. I am flying back to our old state today to testify against my brother tomorrow. He decided to go for a jury trial on advice from my parents. I'm an anxious mess and have tons of conflicting feelings. I helped raise my brother and a large part of my identity has been helping and protecting my siblings. A small part of me feels that testifying against him and sharing everything I know will destroy his life and be a betrayal. But I know he made his bed and must have consequences. It's the right thing to do, as crappy as it feels. The boy I helped raise is not there anymore. He is not the same person that sexually abused a dog. Vat has threatened to shoot up a hospital pediatric unit, stab my sisters, kill my parents with an axe, or kill me and my husband and kids with a sledgehammer. I dread seeing this man tomorrow. Every time his photo shows up on my phone I feel panic. Meeting people with the same name makes my heart beat faster. I can't stop feeling fear. I plan to tell the truth, and let the jury decide if my brother is guilty. I worry that this will destroy what's left of my relationship with my family of origin. I have to do the right thing even if my parents and sisters think this is a betrayal of our family. My sister told me this will not change things between us because she believes I will do the right thing for the family. But the truth is, I plan on doing what's right for my family and the community. Again, I am grateful to you, and will update you on how things go. Final update. I testified against my brother today, in the case of threatening to kill me, my husband, and our kids. My brother was found guilty. I gave a victim statement and my husband gave one virtually. I was able to provide more background on his past threats and guns and other weapons. My testimony at trial was very limited to the phone call, so it felt good to be able to say all the reasons we have to take him seriously. My mom gave a tearful character statement saying he was so gentle and would never hurt anyone. The judge cut her off mid-testimony. It was honestly so validating. He will be released from jail in 2 weeks to serve out his sentence of 2 years of probation with regular check-ins, mandated therapy, and possibly having to wear a GPS tracker. The judge also extended the protective order for me and my husband and kids to 4 years. My mom is renting a hotel room for my brother once he's out of jail. They are trying to find a halfway house, but it will most likely be not very secure. At least probation and mandated therapy should help, I hope. I do not plan on having any future contact with my brother. I will see if we have contact with my parents. I plan on still talking with my sisters. I've urged them to not share their addresses with our brother, but they are adults. I'm not going to reveal our location to any of them because I don't trust that they won't reveal it. I feel that the ruling is fair and will get my brother treatment. I think that we are safe now. I did everything I could. Now I'm in the airport about to fly home, and I'm having a drink to closing this horrible chapter. Cheers! The next one is an entitled people story. Hi Reddit, so I am a pro athlete. I won't say which sport exactly for anonymity, but it's one where you can play singles and doubles. I met my girlfriend 2.5 years ago and we had a wonderful relationship. I also made it very clear from the beginning that I would often have to be away traveling around the country and occasionally internationally to compete in tournaments, and she accepted this, and has never had a problem with it until the coaches paired me with this girl, who I'll call Lucy, who I'll admit I have become good friends with, but that's it, she isn't my type. Lucy is very conventionally attractive, and most guys, 100% not me, would find her more attractive than my girlfriend. I think some of her gossipy friends have got into her head telling her she shouldn't trust me going to hotels with this attractive girl without here there. My girlfriend is always welcome to come along to spectate but usually can't because of work. She then started reading into things that aren't there, like not being happy that me and Lucy hugged each other after winning a tournament together recently. Like what? And apparently looking too close on the team's social media, even though those pictures are designed to make the team look tight-knit. She is asking all sorts of unreasonable things, like asking me to stay in a Spirit hotel to Lucy. The coaches book the hotels and the whole team stays in the same one. It would look so strange if I asked not to be with them. My girlfriend was not happy with this explanation. She is now demanding that I asked for a different doubles partner, which I refused to do. Firstly, becarding. Doing so to me would be like admitting there's something going on when there isn't. And secondly, I am not messing with my chances of success and winning titles because she can't get over her insecurities. During a recent conversation, I admitted to my girlfriend that soon in the run-up to the Olympics I will probably be spending more time training with Lucy than ever before, and she absolutely blew up, saying she loves me but can't deny what's going on right in front of her eyes, and she can't do this anymore. I screamed there is nothing going on, and she stormed out and says she's going to her parents for a few days. And that's where we are at the moment. My goodness, I love this girl so much, and I just want her to trust me, damn it. I have never given her a reason not to. Any advice on how to convince her to trust me? Please don't say ditch Lucy as a doubles partner because I ain't doing that. Update. I don't know if anyone really wanted an update, but things got pretty crazy. After my girlfriend stormed off to her parents, we spoke again over the phone and she still didn't believe me and I was tired of it, so we agreed to end things. She came and collected her stuff a couple of days later and I thought that would be the end. Then 3 weeks passed, and she suddenly comes to my place at night telling me what a fool she had been, and claiming she had come to her senses and knows I wasn't cheating. I was pretty happy to hear that, and we had some pretty great make-up sex, and it seemed problem solved. Then for like a week and a half, I started to get very suspicious of this sudden change of heart. How she went from being 100% sure I was having an affair to 100% sure I'm not, like the flick of a switch. Her behavior was also off, like she was trying too hard to make it up to me. She was never asking me to do any chores like she completely fairly did before. I was coming home to a girlfriend who had my favorite meal made on the table and dressed up sexy for me, which was out of character. I then confronted her, demanding to know why the sudden change. She denied it at first, but then admitted that she hired a PI in those 3 weeks. She was gone to get proof of me and Lucy having an affair to prove she was right. When, in fact, he did the opposite when he told her after his weeks of watching that we definitely wasn't having an affair. This was big of a breach of trust and of my private life, so I told her we are over permanently this time. She actually accepted this quite calmly, seeming pretty resigned to it. We then parted amicably, packed and left again, but I did speak to her yesterday where she seemed in okay spirits, enjoying Christmas with her family, and she told me she is getting therapy in the new year to work on her issues and paranoia. And for me, well, I am all good. I thought I would be really broken up about it, but I actually feel quite happy and free. Just enjoying Christmas and looking forward to trying to get into the Olympics without all the drama. Oh, and to those who thought Lucy might have been into me, she has not made any moves on me since the breakup at all, and there has been no changes in our dynamic. Thanks all who commented. The next one is an entitled people story. So, way back when I first met my wife in high school, she had a friend that was not very nice to me. Let's call her Claire. Claire and her BF were pretty consistently hostile and negative towards me. Lots of negative comments and underhanded insults. The kind where if you complain they tell you you're being too sensitive or I'm just being honest. I'm not going to go into all the things she did, but a key example would be inviting my girlfriend to girls' night out, but when my girlfriend gets there, she sees that not only did everyone else bring their BF, but MGF's ex was also invited for some reason. Claire and the ex were not friends. Schemes aimed at breaking us up were a common theme. For a while I thought she was just scared of losing her friend. We were both pretty conflict avoidant and grew up in less than ideal families, so we just tolerated it. After high school they still talked, but I didn't see Claire much. Fast forward a few years, my GF and I are married now, and so is Claire, to her HS boyfriend who was also hostile to me. I go with my wife to parties at their house. I'm only invited because they know my wife won't go if her husband isn't invited. The hostility towards me is less overt now, but it's pretty clear I'm not wanted there. Mostly just being dismissive or cutting me off when I try to join the conversation. That kind of stuff. We only see them a couple times a year, so I can handle it. Although I do occasionally point out the rude things that are done to me and ask my wife to stick up for me to her friends. She makes an effort, but she really doesn't like confrontation. I try to explain that friends should not treat their friends' spouses like this, and that I would never stay friends with someone that treated her so poorly. But she doesn't have many friends and feels like she can't afford to lose one of the few she has. For the record, my wife is an awesome person. She's pretty, smart, funny, but kind of shy, so it's hard for her to make friends. Things are like this for a few years. At some point Claire and my wife get into a huge fight over Claire's treatment of me, and it comes out that Claire hates me and yada yada yada, basically expects my wife to choose between her and me. I'm happy to say she chose me. My wife cut all contact with Claire. About 3 years go by when Claire reaches out to my wife. She apologizes, and said she realizes now that she was being really unfair to both of us and she wants to make amends. It's years later and I've made a lot of personal growth. I know about boundaries now and that it's okay to say no to people. I realized how much these people contributed to self-esteem issues I am still dealing with. Just hearing their name after all this time made me uneasy. I told my wife that obviously she's free to reconnect with her friend if she likes, but I'm not interested in reconnecting with them. The hurt they caused me is not something that I'm able to forgive. And to be honest, there's really no upside for me. They weren't people I would choose to be friends with even if they were nice to me. I made it clear that I don't want anything to do with them. So for the past 2 years they've hung out every couple months. I don't ask about what they do and my wife doesn't tell me. Honestly, thinking about these people dredges up all the horrible memories and gives me anxiety. I prefer not hearing about them at all. It does hurt a little bit that my wife forgave the people that were so horrible to me, but I know I don't have the right to tell her who she can be friends with. And if I told her how I felt, she would feel pressured to end the friendship. Okay, so now we arrive at today. My wife and I have been planning a party that was going to take place at our house. Nothing serious, just an excuse for friends to get together. A few days before the party my wife says, "Oh, I just remembered I invited Claire and her husband." Apparently it was a Facebook invite, and she just clicked on all of her friends without thinking. She's never said it, but I'm sure she would like it if we could all be friends. I considered the possibility that this was a sneaky way to ease me back into interacting with them again. But she has never pressured me before, and that would be out of character. So am I the a-hole if I just bailed on the party? Tell my wife I'm sorry, but I just can't be around these people. I would do all the cooking the day before and help with the setup so the party can go off as planned. She can make some kind of excuse like I had a work emergency. I can just go somewhere else until the party is over. I don't see too many other options. I can stay at the party and let these people that hurt me so much back into my life. I really don't like that option. Maybe confronting them would be therapeutic? I can ask my wife to uninvite them and she would, but I know it would hurt her, and it just feels really controlling. What should I do? I don't like the idea of being chased out of my own house, but it seems like the lowest conflict option. Update, as many suggested, I talked to my wife about it. There was more to her side of it than I realized. Claire has kids that I'll admit are not like her. Playing with the kids was the only joy I got from visiting them. She isn't exactly thrilled about Claire either, but she really bonded with the kids, and doesn't want to just never see them again. She has been in their life since they were born. Many of the visits are just babysitting while Claire is out anyway. Apparently they miss me and ask why I don't come around anymore. I didn't even know they remembered me. We never talked about it because I told her I don't want to hear anything about Claire. This doesn't really feel like a betrayal anymore. I should have guessed that it comes down to communication. Yeah, the invite was not really an accident. She was hoping for a soft intro that might lead to reconciliation, or at least a more workable situation so she doesn't feel like she is sneaking away to visit the kids. She gets that doing it without asking was a crappy thing to do. We decided to leave the invitation open. Me shunning her is still letting her control me, and I would like to see the kids again. When I think about how much I have changed, I have to admit the possibility she has too. Even if she is still an idiot, she is on my turf. At the first sign of any toxic BS, she gets the boot. I have all the power now, and that feels good. In the end, my goal isn't revenge or retribution. I just want me and my wife to be happy. The people jumping straight to recommending divorce. I think you have some unreasonable expectations of relationships. I could probably make a post about us disagreeing on what end of the toothpaste to squeeze, and you would still say divorce. It's the bottom BTW. Only psychos squeeze the top. The next one is an entitled people story. I work for a small company with 11 employees, soon to be 16. I like my job, and most everyone I work with, bar one member of the senior team. I'll call Gavin, 40M. Gavin isn't the top of the food chain, but he has a lot of clout, as the CEO really likes him and handpicked him to join the company based on their past relationship. Most of the people at my company have worked with each other before in past roles, or know each other personally. Hiring friends is the norm, though I'm one of the few outsiders. This hasn't been an issue at all up until recently, when Gavin hired his wife Donna, F39, to work part-time at the company and asked her to work on some of my projects without consulting me first. I only found out she was going to share projects with me on the day she started. Unfortunately, Donna is not experienced nor naturally talented in the work she's been assigned. She's been insecure, needy and anxious from day one, and lacks the basic skills necessary to do her job well. I've tried to help her adjust because I would actually welcome some help with my workload, but she pulls me into meetings for an hour or two every time she's in the office, asking me really basic questions and/or just quietly panicking at me. She also does this with CEO, who she knows personally through Gavin. I've tried to pull away a little bit by not responding instantly to her Slack messages, and not accepting every meeting she's tried to book with me. The result has been that she's started interrupting me in meetings, asking basic but usually inappropriate questions addressed to me. I don't think she's intentionally undermining me because she's always grateful when I help her, but I'm finding it hard to stay patient. Gavin, of course, always chimes in to support her in team settings. I've also tried to build my one-to-one relationship with Donna so there's enough trust to establish boundaries, but, unfortunately I can't really find much common ground with her. She's quite negative, complaining loudly that no one at the company has their crap together, and I feel like she probably says the same things about me to her husband and the CEO outside the office. There are very subtle signs that the CEO may be starting to realize hiring her wasn't a great idea. If she wasn't Gavin's wife, I think she'd definitely be on her way out. So I think my best strategy here is to wait this out and try to stay calm. However, the CEO booked a one-to-one with me next week, and if he asks me about Donna, I'm not sure what I'll say. I feel the resentment growing, not just at Gavin and Donna, but also at the CEO for not establishing a fair work environment. I don't want to ruin my place in the company over this. My question is, how do I handle Donna while covering my own ass? And what should I say if asked about what I think of Donna's work? Edity, whoa, this blew up. Thanks all for your comments and advice. I just read everything. To clarify a few things. Donna isn't my direct report. We don't have managers at our company, so technically no one is. I wasn't asked to train her, but when I found out on her first day she'd been told to support some of my projects, I sort of had to step in. 2. I don't know if the CEO is going to talk about Donna in our meeting, but I don't like being caught off guard, so I'm thinking more what if. 3. She doesn't have a JD or even a title, so I understand her anxiety to some extent as our environment is pretty chaotic. Given her personal connections, I told her she could probably just define her own role and give herself any title she wants, but she hasn't done it. 4. I don't ignore her messages. I've just stopped responding immediately because it ducks up my focus. 5. I'm not the only person she's doing this to. She naturally also books Gavin into long meetings and also the CEO. She's the only one who gets this level of attention from the senior team in the company, and it's not really sustainable in any case. 6. The work I've tried to help her do is still substandard, which is mainly what's worrying me, and she doesn't really have the right mindset for this type of business that I've seen. She might get away with it as just an average employee in a big company, but in this setting it's glaringly obvious. She's made references a few times that she's been near quitting from stress, so I really don't want to get any more involved in this unless I have to. I don't want to get her fired, but her flailing around, taking up my time is indeed disruptive to my ability to get things done, especially right now because I have additional project work on top of my daily responsibilities. I would just talk to her, but I'm afraid she'll take it totally the wrong way because she's so wound up, and I already have a not great relationship with her husband, so I don't want any of that backsplash. I think my best case scenario is that the CEO takes over her coaching completely if he wants her to stay. I don't feel like I can really ask for that directly, but maybe I could angle for it. Update. Since my story got way more interest than I anticipated, I thought I'd give an update. The CEO didn't want to talk to me about Donna, and I didn't bring it up in the meeting a few weeks ago. However, everything kind of came to a head last week when Gavin started telling other people on the team that a few of us, including me, were making his wife feel awkward. I think some of the original commenters predicted this would happen, albeit in a slightly different way. He didn't tell me directly, and I found out from the other people who had been accused. I then decided to talk to the CEO about Gavin. I didn't mention Donna or her work quality, but I wanted his advice and input on whether I was making anyone uncomfortable. I also gave my side of the story, focusing on how the accusation dampened my morale, and pointing out that I feel like outsider sometimes since most people in the company are old friends. Fortunately for me, he didn't see things the same way Gavin did and said he would speak to him. After the meeting, the CEO quietly took Donna off my projects and reassigned her something small and not really connected to the core business objectives to work on. He's also now interviewing someone from outside the friends and family circle to take on the lion's share of what Donna was originally assigned to do. Gavin has been told to provide more direct support for Donna, which he seems annoyed about but obviously isn't going to fight. The next one is an entitled people story. DNA confirmed that I, 39 meters, have a daughter, 18F, what now? And yeah, I feel just as you would imagine. But it gets worse. She lives in the US, I'm in Europe. I don't know how to do this and really need advice. So what happened is that months ago I got a call from a US number. Didn't answer since I don't know anyone there. Then again the same day, so I answered ready to yell at some scammer. A girl on the other side introduces herself and just say that she thinks I might be her father. That was the first thing she said. Hi, my name is Jane, and I think you might my father. Fake name? Obviously I told her I don't have any children and that she has the wrong number. But then she drops a name I haven't heard in. You guessed it, 18 years. Back around that time I was in the US for a year on a job exchange with our sister company. Met a woman there and we hooked up over maybe a few months. I remember buying condoms after meeting her, but I can't remember if we used them every time. Anyway, I gave her my non-US number but never heard from her again. The girl on the phone asks me if my name is OP and I freak and almost hang up on her. She tells me more about her mother and I just sit there like an idiot. She'd found my name and number in her mother's diary, and now as she turned 18 she wanted to contact me. She lives with her relatives now since her mother is unable to take care of herself for some reason. I still don't know the details there. She asked me if I'd be willing to do an ancestry DNA test and even offered to pay for it. She ends by saying I should think about it, and ask if she can call me again. I just say sure and we hang up. I swear I was about to faint right there and then. The whole conversation lasted only like 5 minutes. I end up taking the test and we talk a few more times. The test took forever, but yesterday she sent me a screenshot of her profile matching 50% to mine. I mean, that's just it, right? We haven't spoken since, just messaged some. I lied and told her I've been busy and we'll talk later, which now makes me feel like an ass. Up until this point I've kept it together, holding on to the thought that I'm probably not the dad, but now I can't deny it. It's probably been half my life since I last cried. I haven't told anyone this. I was kinda hoping the DNA test would come back negative and then I wouldn't have to. How do we even break this to my family? I just know they'll all want her number so they can call her, and then they would start flying over to see her or bringing her here. They're really pushy like that. My mom is going to freak out. I don't see my family more than a few times a year, but we'll all get together during Easter. Should I do it then with all of them at once or one at a time? I have a picture of Jane, but not much more info than what I've written here. I'm the youngest sibling, and now I suddenly have the oldest of the cousins in the next generation. And I never wanted kids at all. I just don't like them and hate being tied up. Even had a vasectomy since then. And that's the easy part. The real problem is what to say to Jane. Can some sane person give an example of what to say? I've promised to call her tomorrow. Has anyone discovered they have an unknown child? If so, what did you do? How did it go? How did you connect? What happened when you met for the first time? What did your family say? I'm a bit embarrassed by this, but is there any risk of me having to pay child support retroactively? I can probably afford it, but I don't really want to. Update. A while back I made a post asking for advice. Back then, I had just had it confirmed by DNA that I had a daughter I never knew about. I called her Jane in the other post, so I will here too. Jane is the result of me hooking up with a woman while I was in the US working. It was really interesting to read about others' experiences in the comments and DMs. It's crazy what DNA tests have done in recent times. Some wrote that Jane is probably just a kid looking for her roots, and you were absolutely right. I've been getting a steady stream of DMs since my last post. Most have been nice, just asking for an update. Then there were the absolute nutcases who can't read and told me to drown myself. Hi to you too. Jane and I continued to talk after my last post, mostly about her life, her mother, the family trees, etc. I never thought I would connect with her like I did. She's a very intelligent and mature young woman. My family knows now, and it went better than expected. Mom and sister still went a bit apeshit, but Dad knocked them out with a large club he always carry with him. To the nutcases, no, that last bit didn't actually happen. Funny thing, my brother-in-law actually distracted Mom by reminding her that she has made sweaters for all the other grandkids, but now she's way behind on one. All of them understandably wanted to call her, but my daughter, yes, it's pretty cool to be able to say that, and I had already planned to have that call the following day. And it went really well. We made introductions, explained everything that had happened, and that we planned for me to meet her by myself before anything. And guess what? We did meet. I flew over for a 10-day stay since I'm on leave and she's working during the summer. That way we could hang out in the evenings and weekend, and I could go full tourist during the day. It was surreal from the start. I landed at the very same airport I left from almost 2 decades ago, and she was there to meet me together with her aunt. I can't describe with words what it was like to hug her for the first time. I'd seen her many times in video calls, but she was just so beautiful, Earl. I started crying. I met so many people in the first couple of days I can't remember the names of half of them. I gave her the sweater from my mother, a hand-drawn family tree from my niece, and a gift I made myself, but I won't tell what that one was. While I, still, don't agree with the Georgia weather, I had a blast during the days just walking around town. I went to Jane's workplace almost every day and pretended to be a regular customer. We had lunch and dinners either alone or with the rest of her mother's side of the family. All of them were so nice and welcoming to me. I visited their house every day, but chose to stay at a hotel since I didn't want to be a bother or impose myself too hard on Jane's life. Businessly, Jane and I talked a lot, about anything and everything, but mostly about her upbringing and her mother. I mentioned in the previous post that her mother wasn't able to care for Jane. I didn't press that subject much at first, but it was unavoidable after a while. I won't get into all the details, but her mother is sick and has lost some cognitive functions. She recognizes Jane and some family members well enough, others not so much. We went to visit the facility where she lives and Jane introduced me by name and not as her father. She sadly didn't recognize me, so I stayed in the background for the remainder of our stay. Seeing a woman not much older than myself in such a state was a somber experience. So yeah, that was me rambling a bit about what happened after my last post. There was obviously a lot more, but most of it is deeply personal and emotional and I won't go through it here. I'm back home, and we are keeping communications open. I'm definitely gonna fly Jane over here at some point when life allows it. But other than that, we have no specific plans for the future. Hope you all have a nice day. The next one is an entitled people story. So I've been dating my GF for like 9 months. She just recently turned 26 and we were celebrating her birthday. At the end of the night we were both kind of drunk, and were talking about our craziest stories from college. She said that her boyfriend at the time and a friend group of guys and girls would sometimes go out at night and mess with homeless dudes, including beating them up with bats. She also referred to them as junkies, and generally dehumanizing terms about them, and she even mentioned that it was great stress relief. She can get pretty crazy sometimes and has a bit of a mean streak, honestly, but it really shocked me when she said this. I thought she was joking because she was laughing while telling the story. But as I acted skeptical, she kept affirming it was true. I just played along and kinda laughed, thinking she was just drunk. The next day it still bothered me subconsciously, so I asked her again about it casually and she said yeah, it was true. The thing that disturbed me though was there was no remorse. She told the story like a lol, good times kind of story. I think if she was embarrassed about it I would have felt different. I still tried to ignore it over the next days, but I obviously wasn't able to, because I ended up researching online for information about similar crimes in that city at that time. I didn't find anything BTW. Unfortunately, I definitely believe her at this point though. She never does these kind of elaborate jokes over days, plus, I can just tell she's being truthful just knowing her. Anyway, like I said, it continued to bother me, so I brought it up one more time a couple days later. This time I was more serious, basically just straight up asking how could she not feel bad about that. I was honestly just curious. She got kind of pissed this time. She asked me if it turns me on, and that's why I keep bothering her about it. I said no, but I just couldn't imagine doing something like that myself, so that's why I'm asking. Then she started saying stuff like, why are you judging me about stuff that happened years ago, and saying it's none of my business who she slept with back then or anything else about her life. That's when it occurred to me that she might have thought I was jealous or something about her ex, since he was apparently one of the guys in that group. She might think I'm trying to guilt trip her out of jealousy related to him or something, which I'm not. But anyway, that was how it ended, and I'm obviously not going to bring it up again. Even though I honestly considered breaking up over this, I kind of saw where she was coming from in that it was a long time ago, and maybe I'm being kind of a dick for judging her over this? What do you think? I'm no saint at all, but I can't help that it bothers me. I can't look at her the same way now, and I really think it might be over. Thanks for your advice. Update. I just wanted to let everyone know that I broke up with my girlfriend. I absolutely do not condone any violence against unhoused people. That's the reason I asked about it, because it seriously shocked me. But then everyone turned it on me and acted like I was condoning it. I'm sorry, but it just takes a lot of time to process when you're in a relationship with someone. You can't just end it like that. Plus, I try to be really mindful of things like shaming women for past mistakes and relationships. The last thing I want to be is one of those guys. And when she accused me of that herself, I started believing I may be wrong. But anyway, when I told her we were going to have to break up because of what she told me, she actually looked shocked. I think she believed I was joking at first, but I straight up told her how wrong she was for doing that, which I hadn't had the courage to do before. I said how she could have even killed one of those guys and not known it, etc. She didn't have much to say, just looking really angry, honestly. But anyway, once I showed I was serious, she started guilt-tripping me about how I'm trying to shame her for her past, etc. the same point she had made before. But in the end she started insulting me really harshly, and eventually turned it around on me. And it was like she was breaking up with me instead. However, she wants to think of it's fine with me. Some of the things she said were really hurtful if I'm being honest, but I know she was just angry, and I just have to keep reminding myself that I did the right thing. As for reporting the crimes, like some people said, I did try, but I had trouble talking to a person at that police department over the phone. It's across the country from where I am. The phone recording tells me to file reports online. The online form asks me if I know who did the crime, and when I check, yes, it tells me I have to file the report on the phone or in person. Anyway, I'm still working on that, but it seems like there's a lot of bureaucracy to do through. Sorry for not responding to a lot of you before, but I was really overwhelmed. Even though this isn't my main account, I want people to know I did the right thing. Take care. Are you hungry for more slices of stories? Don't forget to subscribe and hit the bell to never miss out on any videos. See you tomorrow at Story Slices.